right, good. Good morning, everyone. We're here to talk about automating all things, basically getting to Azure using Visual Studio Team Services. My name is Esteban Garcia. I'm the founder and chief technologist of Nebbia Technology. I'm a Microsoft ALM MVP. I'm joined here with David Corbin, also an ALM MVP. He's going to be helping me answer some questions throughout this session, and also at the end of the session, we're going to be here answering any questions that you may have. So hopefully you're here for the right thing. So today we're going to be talking about setting up release pipelines. What is a release pipeline? What is the purpose of setting up a release pipeline as you're trying to get something going from checking code in until you get something to production? I'm going to be introducing Visual Studio Team Services to you. And we're going to be going through an Azure deployment. I'm going to take an application that's sitting on my machine on Visual Studio, and we're going to get that application out to Azure within 20 minutes. And in the meantime, we're going to set up a build, we're going to set up a release automation, and the whole purpose of this is to show you that you can automate everything in your pipeline with Visual Studio Team Services, and using Azure to help you get there. So let's talk about release pipelines. What is the purpose of release pipeline? How does it work? And why do you care about it? So the purpose of release pipeline is to basically lower the cycle time from the moment that you check code in until you get that code into production. We want to avoid having those panic the night before a release. We've never released this before. Now we're going to have to stay up here all night trying to release something to production. By the time we get to production, we need to have practiced that release over and over and over into multiple environments. And of course, we want to be able to control that release. We need to make sure that people have the ability to approve releases. We have this automated process that everyone can contribute to, and that managers and different people can also approve and create gates along the way. We don't just want to push code out. We want to make sure that we're compiling the code. That's where the CI part comes in. We compile the code, we test the code, we run our unit tests. As more people create more unit tests, we're going to add more unit tests and run those tests. And then once we have a package of that code, of that tested code that's been tested over and over and over, we're able to take that package and deploy to multiple environments. It's up to you to define those environments. It's up to you to define those gates that are going to allow us to get to those environments. So how do we create this release pipeline? So thankfully, Microsoft created Visual Studio Team Services. Visual Studio Team Services is more than just version control. It is version control, it is build automation, it is a collaboration tool that allows you and your team to deliver software faster. That is the whole purpose of VSTS. It is a complete DevOps solution. It allows you to deliver value, allows you to define what your backlog looks like. It allows you to prioritize what is the right work that we should be delivering today. Rather than measuring your releases in many months, VSTS allows you to measure releases in how many releases per day are we doing. Now, when we say releases per day, we don't mean, well, you might be releasing to production many times a day, but don't think that you have to. You might be releasing many times a day to dev, to staging, and then the idea is that once you're ready to release to production, you've practiced it and you know that it's going to work. VSTS allows you to do continuous testing along the way, right? If we're trying to automate things, that also means testing. We're also able to take maybe a Selenium-based test and run it as part of our build. And then we're able to take all that and get to Azure quickly. And then within VSTS, we have a release management capabilities. Release management allows you to trigger off of a build and then set up all these environments with gates along the way. That way, every single person in your team is releasing code the same way. We want to get away from right-click and publish. That works really well, and it's convenient. But I'm going to release something a little bit different than the way that you're going to be releasing, or the way that you're going to be releasing. And the idea here, if we're trying to go faster, if we're trying to make sure that we have an automated and a process to get to production, we want to use something like release management in VSTS to do that. So with that, I gave you some concepts. Now let me go into demo. I don't want to bore you with a bunch of slides for 20 minutes, so let me show you what this looks like. So I am in Visual Studio, and I've been working on this web application for a few weeks, and my manager said, all right, it's time for us to deploy. We want to get this into a dev environment, into a staging environment. There's a few different options. I could just right-click on my web application and publish. And again, that is a convenient way to get something out, but it's not a repeatable process, and this is only going to get my web application out there. We may need to do a few other things than just pushing our web application out. We may need to run some PowerShell scripts or do some database things or create our environments in Azure. So we're not going to do that today. Instead, we are going to check this code in or push this code up to VSTS. So let's switch over to VSTS. So as I mentioned, Visual Studio Team Services. So you just go to visualstudio.com and you can create your own VSTS account. It is TFS living in the cloud, right? So T Foundation Server living in the cloud. Here, I've set up a Git repository. VSTS supports Git and TFVC. So it supports a centralized version control system and also a distributed system using Git. So I've already pushed all my code up to Git. Once I get my code in VSTS, my next step is to set up a build automation process. To do that, I can just go up to the build area in VSTS and click on builds. Once I go into in there, I can create my first build definition. The build process in VSTS is completely cross-platform. You're able to build pretty much any type of application out there. By default, Microsoft gives you quite a few different templates that you're able to use. We start with the Microsoft Focus templates at the top, but if I start scrolling down, you can see that I can do an Android build. I can do an Xcode build. I can do some Node build, Jenkins, Java builds, right? So this is a full cross-platform build system that allows you to basically run any task that you want, right? If there's there are a lot of built-in tasks, but there's also, you can jump out to command line. You can jump out to PowerShell and make this build process work for you. I'm going to start just by creating, picking one of the templates. This is a web application. I'm picking the ASP.NET template and click on apply. So essentially the build system is, it's a task system. You give it a bunch of tasks. You see all these different tasks here at the bottom that you're telling it to run for you. You're able to change tasks around. If I decide that I want to do this task first, I can just drag it up and down and move it to the different spots. I'm also able to add more tasks. So if I click on this plus button, you see a list of all the different tasks that are available to you. Again, very cross-platform. You're able to just take the task, move it into your list of items that you're doing, and then your process works. The idea here is that this one CI build, this one continuous integration build that I'm setting up here, will be used by everyone in the team. Now you don't have one person building something one way while someone else is building a little bit different way. Now you start moving away from having code being deployed from someone's machine or having that one machine in the corner that no one can touch because we can only deploy from there. We all have that machine, so don't be ashamed of that. But we want to move away from those machines. We want to make sure that we have one way to do it. We have a build server somewhere or a pool of build servers that are going to allow us to build this and get the scalability that we need and allow us to build the way we need to build for our application. In my case, this application is going to build, this build definition is going to build my solution. Then it's going to find any unit tests that it finds within that solution, and it's going to run those unit tests. And at the end, it's going to take the package of that code, that zip file that contains all my DLLs, and it's going to publish it right back to VSTS. Once it makes it back to VSTS, that package is available for me to pass it on to the next phase, which is going to be release management. But just clicking on that plus button and just telling it, hey, I want to run this on one of my hosted build agents, I'm done. I have a CI build. Well, there's one more thing that I need to do to make it truly CI. If I go to triggers, I can enable continuous integration. So what does this mean? It means that every single time someone pushes code up to VSTS, this build is going to trigger and it's going to compile and test my application. So whenever someone tells you, no, CI is very difficult, this is a 3-year project before where we are right now, where we're doing manual builds until we get to CI. If you have TFS, you have VSTS, you can get CI going pretty quickly. So, so once we have this build process, let me save this here. I'm not going to queue it because it takes a little while to go, but I'm going to show you a build that's already completed that I set up before this demo. So this build has the exact same steps that I just showed you. It completed. It gave me a status of what happened during this build. There's quite a few things that happened, and I get quite a bit of information back. First, I can see that there was one associated change. So whenever I push my code, so I committed it locally and then I push it up to the server, this build knows exactly which change was part of that. So I can click on this associated changes, and it'll show me the commits, and it'll show me exactly what I changed about my code. It also showed me all these work items, all these requirements or user stories, or product backlog items that were associated to this build. So think about it, VSTS is giving me my build manifest, right? If someone on the test team or my product owner says, what was included in this build? I can easily point them right to here and say, well, the stories that we completed in this build are right here. The next thing that I get is code coverage. I turned on code coverage as I was running my test cases, and I can see that 63% of my code is being covered. So now that I'm getting some data back from VSTS, and that's going to help me and my team guide what we do for our next sprint. Maybe our goal is to get to 80% code coverage. So now this gives me that information right away. I don't have any special things installed on my VSTS account for me to be able to do these things. You get all of this that I'm showing you, it's out of the box. Finally, you get tests. So one of the things that I talked about earlier is that as we create our build automation and release pipeline, we need to make sure that we're doing continuous testing. We need to make sure that it's easy for people to create new unit tests and add them to the build. And as they get added, they should be exercised. And that gives us an idea of whether our code base is healthy and we're at a point where we can release. So here we can see that we ran 3 test cases, they all passed. And if I look at all my test cases, so let me show you all of them, so just the past ones, I can see a trend of them. I can see these 2 have run twice, and over history, this one test case has always passed, and you can see timings there. Great. So now I completed my build, and we want to take that package that was created by my build, which, by the way, you can see up here under artifacts. You can see the packages that were created and that can be handed off to the release management process. So what do we do next? Within VSTS, I can go to the releases area, and I want to create a new release definition. That release definition is going to be based on the build that I created. So to get started with release, it's just as simple as it is with the build definition. I click on this little plus icon on the top, and I say I want to create a new release definition. VSTS is going to ask me, what is it that you want to deploy? Is it coming from a build? Is it coming from some other system? Do we have multiple builds converging into a single release? So here first I tell it which artifact I want to add. So let's go ahead and, actually first I want to tell it I want to do an Azure App Service deployment. That's going to define the template that I use. Then I want to tell it which artifact. So since VSTS is just one big system that's all working together, the release management system knows about the build. So I ran a build called bike sharing CI, and now VSTS knows, or the release management process knows, that the build output is coming into the release pipeline. Let me show you a release pipeline that's already configured, so that you see one that's already working. So let's go back to releases, and let's go to bike sharing CI and edit. So there's a release pipeline that I created before. So what's happening here? I'm going through 3 different stages, right? So what's happening is the moment I complete a build, the first thing I do, I move over to deploying to development. After development, I go to staging, and then I go to production. Now, a couple of things let me show you. First, let's go take a look at what's happening within each environment. In my dev environment, the first thing I do is I create my Azure resource group. My Azure resource group, so I have something called our ARM template. We can talk about that afterwards. But using an ARM template, I'm defining what the infrastructure of my Azure resource group looks like. So what it's going to support this deployment. I might need to define a web application, I might need to define a database, some networking, whatever you need. Next, I deploy my web application, and then I decide to run a quick load test on my web application before I move on to letting QA test this. Let's go back to our pipeline. The next step is QA. Now, we don't want to just hammer our code right through every environment. Someone has to say, wait, we are ready to take this QA release. Maybe QA or our testers in our team are in the middle of testing something, and they don't want to destroy their environment and start all over. So we want to make sure we create gates, and we have people approving these releases. So I've defined these approvers. So just by clicking here, you can see that there's been a pre-deployment approver. And you can specify who this pre-deployment approver, and it can be more than one person. You can even set up a mini workflow there. You can say, well, it has to be these 3 people in a specific order. Or it can be any one of these 3 people. Or it can be just this one specific person, right? So you can set that up that way. You can have pre and post deployment approvers. And you can set that up along the way, right? So you can imagine if in your organization, maybe there's an operations manager that has to approve something going out to production. Maybe the dev and the operations manager have to do so. Maybe the QA manager has to approve something leaving the QA area and things like that. So this allows you to do that. On each environment, you're also able to define the steps, right? So I might say, well, for production, even though it's nice to do a quick web performance test, maybe it's okay that we did a web performance test on our staging environment, but production, we want to leave that alone. Or maybe you do want to do that, right? But it's up to you. You define the steps that are taken on each environment. Ideally, you are practicing your deployments and every single stage has the same steps, but really this gives you the flexibility to do that. I've already triggered this, so whenever the build completed, for timing purposes, I already completed the release. So let me show you what you see from a release. So I actually did 2 releases. Let's take a look at the last one that completed. Actually, the last one we haven't deployed to production yet because there is a production deployment that's waiting for an approval, as you can see on this yellow area at the top. So we've deployed to dev and QA, and it's waiting for me to approve that deployment to production. Let me go ahead and approve it, and I'll talk through what's happening here. So I'm going to click on approve. It's going to ask me, yeah, do you approve yes or no? And maybe we don't want to do a release at 2 p.m. Maybe we want this release to happen at 8 p.m. tonight or 1 a.m. Tomorrow morning. I can defer this approval to 1 a.m. and I don't have to wake up at 1 and push a button. VSTS will take care of that for me. I don't want to keep you guys here until 1 a.m., so I'm just going to approve this right now. So let's go ahead and approve it. So now my deployment to production starts, and now VSTS is orchestrating all those steps that I showed you a second ago. So you can see it's in progress now. Let me show you some things that you get with release management that are just very, very powerful. So as I mentioned, we started with our requirement earlier, our user story. We associated our commits to that user story, and then our build picked those up and ran some test cases. Now, if I look at our release, and someone says, well, what is in this release? I can easily say, well, there's this one commit that we included here, and I can go look at that commit. I can also see, well, these are the user stories that we're deploying here. That way there's no question about what's getting released, right? So VSTS is helping you manage that communication, that expectation. At the beginning I told you, VSTS is a collaboration tool. This allows you and your team to deliver software faster. This type of thing is what allows for that, right? So now there's no question about, well, what was in that release? What changes? Why did we make this change? This really helps you bring all of it together. So now let's go take a look at logs, and this is what happened right now. Right now we can see exactly what we're doing. We just download our artifacts into our agent. Right now we're actually created our environment in Azure. We're deploying to Azure, and then we're going to run some web deployment, a web performance test in Azure. As this is happening, I can switch over to Azure, and I can see these are my environments I got created. Prod's running right now, so let's take a look at QA. And QA has these items here. It has a web application, it has application insights, and now I'm deploying to it all the time, and I can now get people access to my applications pretty quickly. So now I've gone from having code in Visual Studio, where it just lived there, and if someone wanted to test it, they needed to borrow my laptop. I moved away from just right-click and publish, so now I push my code up to Git. From Git, I created a build automation, a continuous integration process that's going to be triggered off of that push to Git. And then when that build completes, that triggers the orchestration that happens when I want to release to the multiple environments. As I go through each environment, I'm able to get someone to approve those deployments to QA or to production or to any other environment and run any task that I need. And then I get my code out to Azure. Let's see where that release is. So right now we've already deployed, and that's a very short time since I approved. We've already gone through all these steps. We're already deployed to Azure, and now we're running a load test. So creating this release pipeline was pretty straightforward to do. Now I went straight into VSTS. I want to show you one thing that may help you as well. There is an extension for Visual Studio that will allow you to set up that release pipeline right from Visual Studio. So you could go to your solution in Visual Studio. And let me zoom in here so you can see this. As long as you've added the continuous delivery extension for Visual Studio, so you can add that to Visual Studio, you get this button that says configure continuous delivery. Once you do that, it's going to ask you, where is this code? Is it in VSTS? Yes. What repo is it in? What subscription, what Azure subscription do you want to deploy to? And what do we want to call the app service? Once I said yes to all this, I click OK, and Visual Studio is going to go out to VSTS. It's going to create my build definition. It's going to create my release pipeline. It's not going to be as complex as what I created here. It's only going to create one single phase. It's going to create one single task to deploy the web application. But this is a really easy way for you to get started with continuous integration and continuous deployment. So a few different options there. At the end of the day, VSTS is what's enabling all this. It's enabling you to go from idea to production much, much faster while collaborating with your team. So with that, I want to open up for any questions. And also, after this, we're going to, David and I are going to be available for additional questions. I know we don't have a lot of time. Yes? Yeah, so the question is, what if the build fails and you have to roll back? So right from release management, I could go to a specific release, and I could say, yeah, this release didn't work out very well. Let's go back and see the releases that we have. And I can go to release number 1, and I can go to prod and say, I want to redeploy this. So I can redeploy a previous version into production if something goes wrong. That way you can roll back. Yes? The question was, do you get a lot more with this than you get with TFS on-prem? So TFS and VSTS, they share a code base, but VSTS gets releases every 3 weeks. So you do get a lot because VSTS is farther ahead than TFS. Even with VSTS, you are able to run this on premises, so your builds and your releases can happen on a local machine. They don't have to happen out in Azure. But yes, you do get a lot just because of where they are in the cycle.
So everything you saw here today is basically in TFS 2017. The menus might be a little bit different. It may not be a smooth shot like that, but every function you saw here today is in 2017. Some of the functions that if you went and set up a VSTS account, a free VSTS account, and played with it, may not be there until 2018, which is in release candidate right now. So it's because of the faster cadence. Things do have trouble with the services. But so far, where applicable, everything has made it down to TFS on-premise.
Yeah. So the question about Jenkins. So I think we're running out of time, but let's answer here. But there is an integration with Jenkins. You're able to have a Jenkins build and make a connectivity into VSTS. I can show you that here after the call. So I really appreciate you guys coming to this session. Hopefully this was valuable. Make sure you fill out your evaluations, and thanks for your time.